So I'm going to talk about life after graduate school, how to prepare for that eventuality. And part of that is, starting to think about a job after graduate school, how to put together a good application package, how to craft a good CV, and how to interview well. Mark Twain wrote, "The secret of getting ahead is getting started." The secret of getting started is breaking your complex, overwhelming task into small, manageable tasks and starting on the first one. So one of the first manageable tasks you want to do is start preparing for your life post-graduate school. And the emphasis here is on finishing something, finishing the projects, your thesis, your dissertation, your papers. It's better to get one paper completely done than to have 4 papers 90% done. And it's also best to begin your job search while you're still employed or en route to a degree. You want to begin looking at the job advertisements before you would even think about applying, just to get an idea of the field. What's out there? What's available? What kind of options would you have? What's the market? And then ask your mentors, your colleagues, and your friends for places to look so that you can start tracking where the best place to be looking. And you want to develop a network of mentors. You want to seek out people who have the experience, the skills, and the personal traits that you desire. You want to develop these relationships that can lead to good mentoring. And you can do that by having shared readings, by exchanging ideas, by discussing issues. You want to make sure you listen carefully and study the reactions of your mentors, apply the things you've learned, and ask for advice. Don't be afraid to ask for advice. If you're thinking about, maybe I'm thinking about applying for this job or taking these courses to prepare myself for this kind of career, best to get advice. And then stay in touch. Don't just use them when you're looking, but also follow up and maintain that continuity, that contact. So while you're in grad school, make sure you work hard at improving your communication skills. Practice giving talks, presenting posters, doing elevator speeches. Make sure you take the time to improve those communication skills and your written skills and your visualization skills. Make sure you develop the so what, the implications aspects of your research so that you can quickly tell people, like an elevator speech, why you're doing what you're doing and why it's important. You want to try to synthesize every time you can, integrate at all opportunity, make comparisons with other scientific literature or other societal contextual comparisons. And you want to talk with scientists beyond your instructors or your committee. Seek them out. Best to develop this network. One of the best ways to do that is to attend and participate in seminars. Don't just sit there and passively, but ask questions, go up afterwards, talk to the speaker. It expands your mind and it exposes you to new ideas, new institutions, and new people. And read widely, not just the narrow bit in your field, but make sure you stay current on the things that are happening in science. Now, looking for a job, don't be afraid to use personal contacts to at least get you started. I mean, nobody is, unless you're actually related, or you're going to get a job just because of personal contact. You'll get a job interview or you'll get your foot in the door, but you have to still get the job. It's up to you. But use those contacts to get that opportunity. I always say everything I ever have done, employment-wise, started as a volunteer effort. That was what got me every job I've ever gotten. I initially did because I wanted to. I volunteered for it. Don't say no to a job that hasn't been offered yet. A lot of times people talk themselves out of a job by saying, well, I would need these kind of benefits. I would need vacation time. Don't negotiate until you get your job offer. Keep trying. It often takes multiple attempts to get the job that you really want. It's everybody nowadays. There's a job for everybody. You can go to Burger King and flip burgers if you want, but if you're a professional and trying to do science, that's not going to be necessarily the job that you really want initially, so you've got to keep trying. You need to start somewhere. Don't be afraid to start an entry-level position. It might not be the ultimate job you desire, but it's most important to keep moving you in the direction towards getting that job that you really do want. And these are the questions that you need to be able to think about in the course of an interview. And you want to think about that as you're applying for jobs. Why do you want this job? What's in it for you? How does this advance your career? And for the employer, prospective employer, why should they hire you? What are they going to get out of it? So be thinking about that as you're looking for a job. So some broad crystal ball gazing about future jobs. This is just my personal perspective. I think developing sustainable solutions is going to be the next major scientific revolution, and so sustainability is going to be a big theme. Transferring data into information, into knowledge and application will become more important than generating new data. We've got all these new data streaming sensors and techniques, but it's important to figure out what to do with all that data and becoming more important than ever. Ecosystem assessment, ecological forecasting are emerging management needs in our world of coastal marine environmental science. Climate change, of course, is going to be more central and increasingly relevant to everything we do, whether you're directly studying climate change, but no matter what you're doing, climate is in environmental sciences is becoming much more central. And also human and ecosystem health interactions will start to get more attention. We know that now that AIDS and Ebola, are viruses that jump from animals to humans, but those jumps come when ecosystem health is compromised generally. So putting together job applications. So I'm going to put a few thoughts into how to provide a good, strong job application. Now remember, the application is really not to get the job. The application, your goal is to be invited for the interview, because you're going to get the job after the interview, not after an application. So what do you want in an application package? You want a short, concise cover letter, a CV. Doesn't have to be short and concise. That can be extended. And additional materials if you're writing samples or PDFs of publications, your references, your statement of research interest, or if you're applying for a teaching job, a statement of teaching philosophy. And remember that you're selling something, you're selling yourself, and the part of yourself that you're selling is how you fit into your prospective employer's universe. So you got to recognize it's tailoring your job application for that prospective employer. One thing people often don't appreciate is that all correspondence and phone calls are part of your application package. So you need to be professional, succinct, and clear. You want to make sure when you send an email with attachments, you actually have those attachments connected to your email. The only thing worse is that you have to send a follow-up email. Oh, this is the one with the attachments. You want to compose your important emails in Word and make sure you spell check, of course, and grammar check, but avoid accidental sending before finish. Really craft those important emails. And remember that most of your email traffic in regards to a job application are going to be forwarded to the other people in the committee or HR people. So don't put anything in there that isn't going to be professional and clear. So here's just an example of a job applicant email. I just put in fake names. This is your real email, and this is the cover email. Just short, succinct, contact details. Here's what's attached, and of course the attachments were included on this. That person, in fact, got the job. Here's a cover letter example, 1 page. You have your address on there. You have why you're qualified, why you want this job. You have your electronic signature and your enclosures. Your CV or resume, just for Reference, CV, is Latin for the course of my life. And CVs in academia include your educational background, your publications, your presentations, and other achievements, typically multiple pages. Resume is a French word for summarized. It's often shorter than a CV, more of a narrative of your previous jobs, and a succinct job history, typically shorter. Most academic jobs, you're probably going to be moving towards a CV format. Now, the CV goal is to provide relevant information to a prospective employer. And remember, it's the relevant information. Okay, so it's tailoring that information that you share with the employer that's relevant to that employer. You're going to have your degrees, your institutions, your completion dates. Each CV is individual. It's tailored for each job. So you might, okay, I have a CV. I'll send that CV. Read over that CV and tailor that so that it's targeted. Don't have typos on a CV. Make sure you use good grammar and good English. Have your contact information, and make sure you celebrate your accomplishments. Things to include in your CV. Since most graduate students don't have a long list of published work, you can also include your unpublished works. So even if you haven't submitted a paper, put your title, your working title, your submission date that you've planned, and the prospective journals you're going to be putting it into. Of course, cite your relevant presentations and conferences that you've attended. Include an accurate depiction of skills. Don't oversell this. Be honest. Any language skills, computer programming skills, any statistics or field skills. If you list hobbies, focus on the ones relevant to the job. So, if it's photography or water sports and you're applying for a job with DNR, that's probably quite relevant. One of the things that's often really good to include is grants, no matter how small. If it's a travel grant to a conference, that's hundreds of dollars, put that in there. It shows initiative. And tailor this for different applications. These are 3 CVs that I've used, one for an education grant, one for I don't even remember what the other things, why I did them differently, but for different granting schemes. And then I would change out the publications that I'm going to feature. I talk about, for an education grant, I'll talk about anything associated with education, with research. I'll focus on those things. So tailor it accordingly. The references you use, the people that you've chosen to vouch for you. It's best to have a diversity of references. In other words, not all from one institution. It shows some continuity. It shows that there are people who respect you from different walks of your, different stages of your life. Anytime you can put a reference that's likely known to the respective employer, it really helps. So you want to do a little research. Find out. Do you know anybody at this institution or agency? And then try to match that, because a prospective employer will value the input from somebody they know 10 times more than anybody else, even with even people that are higher ranked, because it's that people that you trust. You want to make sure your references are contacted ahead of time. They don't want to be getting a call or an email out of the blue. You want to make sure you can trust the people that are going to say good things about you. I've made that mistake previously, where I didn't have, just assumed that I would have a good recommendation from a person that did not give me a particularly good recommendation. So I learned my lesson the hard way. Recognize that employers will often contact additional sources than the ones that you provide. Again, particularly anybody that they know at your institution. So, and make sure you include the details about your references, the name, their title, their institution, their phone, their email. Make it easy for them to contact them. Don't make them have to dig around on the web to find that. Make sure you have a good LinkedIn presence, current and up to date. And remember that publicly available social media is fair game. So if you depending on your settings you put on Instagram or Facebook, it's, your prospective employer is going to Google that, or look on Facebook for you and see if you've got some embarrassing things about your life. Don't share that with the world. So change your settings, or make sure your public persona is not counterintuitive to the kinds of jobs that you'd be looking for. So let's say you've done this job application, you've produced a good CV, and you've done your job properly, so you've earned the opportunity to do a job interview. So here's some things to think about in terms of a job interview. And the goal here is to be offered the job, not to negotiate the job, but to get the job offer. And I already talked about the basic questions. Why would you want to hire me? And why do I want this job? How does that fit into my career trajectory? One of the things a lot of times people in interview are always they're just worried about what they're going to say. And they have got the little speeches in their mind, and they just spill that out. And they forget to listen to the interviewers, what questions they're asking, the things that they care about. So you have to listen. Get their names, preferably ahead of time, so you can do that. Write it down as they go around the room, so you can remember. It's hard sometimes to, all new people. And if you get business cards, you can kind of arrange them on the table so you can track out who's who. Doing your homework is absolutely, and I do a lot of job interviews, and I can tell you a surprising amount of lack of homework. If you got to look at their website, you got to Google the organization, the people, do the web searches, interview your colleagues, find out what they know about this place or this institution. If you come in prepared, it makes a huge difference. Be enthusiastic, be on time, better to be a little early. Make sure you ask questions. Don't just talk, listen. And to listen, to solicit input, ask questions. So come with questions prepared. Look for connections, look for opportunities to connect, to say, I know so-and-so who's worked on this, and you must know that. So make eye contact with the entire panel. Don't just zero in on who you think the chair of the panel is. Don't negotiate your salary, your schedule, your benefits. Wait until you get a job offer. Don't chew gum and fidget. Don't have your phone ringer on. Don't check your phone during the interview. Focus on the people there. Don't disregard the support staff. That's people that help you organize the travel or help you with the IT support. Make sure you treat them well, because that all counts. And don't use jargon or acronyms that these people won't understand. What to wear, that's always, a bit of a challenge to figure that out. So the short answer is dress appropriately, which is not too casual, not too formal. That doesn't give you much guidance, but you're trying to fit in. You're trying to look like everyone else. If you have to, you can ask discreetly. You want to try to be sort of equivalent than your interviewers, but slightly more formal. Just appear professional with a man. A tie often is good. Sometimes a jacket, nice shoes. Not flip-flops, a woman, a suit or equivalent, work shoes, not heels, so you're just looking to show them that you care, and that's that you've cared enough about your appearance, so you're not, slouching around in a t-shirt and a pair of shorts and flip-flops, but you're actually giving it some thought. Sometimes you'll be invited for a telephone or a Skype type interview. So there are a couple things to think about there. Got to find a quiet place and no distractions. Make sure you think about what's behind you, because they're going to be seeing that. So you want to have a look at the camera and think about what's behind you. Don't type notes, because you can hear that clicking of the keyboard when you're on the phone. Write down the names in the order of introduction, so they'll probably introduce themselves around the room. And sometimes it's interesting. I've been on phone interviews where where there'll be, 4 or 5 of us sitting around a table, and we'll go in, some order, clockwise or counterclockwise, and write it down in that order. And then when you ask questions, I remember once, the person went through and asked questions in order along the table, and it's almost like that person was in the room. We were like kind of spooked out. It's like, wow, how did they? And it was really powerful. It really worked. Let the interviewers finish their questions and ask for clarification if you need it, and then go through your answer. And it's often good to jot down notes as they're asking the questions, so that you can kind of say, hey, I've got 3 points I'd like to make to address that question. And here they are, 1, 2, 3. So sometimes it's really nice to find out, and you can't often do this overtly, but you'd like to know, are there any inside candidates? Who's your competition? And half the jobs typically have an inside candidate, and so it's nice to know that. How long has the search been underway? Where do employees go following employment? What's the sort of career trajectory? And what's the interview timeline and process? So sometimes these aren't questions you want to just straight out ask during the interview, but it'd be nice to do a little ferreting around to see if you can figure that out. Some things to keep in mind during the interview. Interviews are two-way conversations. They're interviewing you, and you're interviewing them. It's two-way. And don't be afraid of saying, I don't know. That's good advice for a thesis defense, by the way. But it does help to mention something related that you do know about. So don't just say, I don't know, period. Say, I don't know, but I do know this, this, and this, which could be relevant. They're not hiring you based on your knowledge as much as your ability to think and act on their behalf. So, the actual analytical process that you can share in your answers are really important. Money often talks when it comes to academic jobs. Bringing your own money, whether it's partial funding or full funding, or willingness to help get money, write proposals and stuff with people is a bonus. So a lot of times when you're looking for postdoc, if you've got some money already there, or can partner with somebody to write proposals to get you your funding, that is a real plus. These are real live stories. Each one of these are things that I've encountered, just to give you some idea of the kinds of pitfalls and good things to happen. The pitfalls first. One guy was chewing gum during an interview. Afterwards, one of the other people asked, why did you have the gun? He said, well, I had been drinking coffee, and then I had coffee breath, so I popped in some gum, and you came out, and I didn't have anywhere to put it, so I just left it in my mouth, and I was distracted and threw him off. He didn't get the job. I did a job interview with a woman who would only make eye contact with me and none of the other interviewers, and that just didn't sell, because in the end, her immediate supervisor felt dissed, felt like he wasn't being taken seriously. Sometimes people have attempted to negotiate the salary during an interview, saying, well, I'm not going to do this job for less than whatever. Well, that's not the time to do the negotiation. Didn't provide enough information on a CV to obtain an interview. That was me. I did that as a young PhD, nearly graduated. I applied for a postdoc, and I had a guy in there that really wanted me and was really pushing for me. I gave him a 2-page CV, and he said, you didn't give me enough ammunition. I didn't have enough to work with, so I learned my lesson. Dwelling on shortcomings on a phone call. I remember this one. This guy talked himself out of the in-person interview, and said, well, you've told me enough. I think we're not going to have to bother having you come in. In one case, a reference didn't support the candidate, and so the candidate hadn't checked that reference. And when we did the references, they said, well, I wouldn't support this person for this job, so no interview. And if CV not being accurate, I had a guy I was about ready to interview, and the university went and checked his degree, and it turned out he had not been granted the degree that he indicated. Done. Here's some success stories. Creating a novel presentation that was topical, current, and informative. This was really, I remember asking after the job, I said, where'd you get that, all that presentation? So I pulled it together from this, all these different sources. And I was like, wow, that was really good. You're hired. Impressed everyone involved in the search, including administrative support. And here's a secret. I always check with my assistant who does most of the travel bookings. And, the people, it's almost a one-to-one correlation. The people that are easy to get along with, helpful, make her life easy, are the people that we liked and offer the job to, and vice versa as well. Comfortable, appropriate clothing. One of the best things that ever happened to me when I was interviewing for my job in Australia, University of Queensland, they lost my bags. The airline lost my bags, so I had my airplane clothes, which were a polo shirt and khaki pants, and everybody else, it was stinking hot. Everybody else had suits and dresses, and actually in Australia you meet your competition on the same day. I was so comfortable, and I had a good excuse. Hey, they lost my bags. You got me, and so it went well. Another success story is a guy that came in, made a great impression, but the job didn't fit. But we thought, when we had a job that did fit, we contacted him and he got the job. So making a good impression, even though, somewhere in the middle you realize, this isn't the right job. Don't just blow it off. The right job could come along. So this was a story where CV was, okay, but it was really the Q&A and the stories and the hobbies. This person lived for this stuff. This was a IT kind of person, and he had, for a hobby, he had rigged up his mailbox to have it, as soon as it was opened, to trigger a little text message to his phone. I mean, that's the kind of stuff he played around with. It was like, that's the kind of guy we want. Less academic credentials, but great attitude with honest answers and willingness to learn. Actually, the two most recent job hires both had. We hired somebody with a bachelor's, double major bachelor's degree over a PhD and master's candidates, just because of the attitude and good willingness to learn. So these are just real life stories to give you the flavor for what you're trying to do when you go to a job interview. So when you get an opportunity to give a presentation, well, the most important thing to do is not to go over the time. Keep to the allotted time. To use good science communication techniques. Practice. Don't just turn up for the first time. Practice, practice, practice. Anticipate questions. Allow time for questions, which means keeping to your allotted time. Many jobs are really decided on the Q&A more than the presentation. And one way to do that effectively is bring extra slides. Have them queued up, ready to go. So if there's a question about a particular topic, you can go right to that slide and then press them that, ooh, he or she has already thought about that. My question gives the questioner a little, oh, that was a relevant question because obviously you put time into putting that together. Many times that's been the case. So here's some skills that I think are increasingly important in the job market for science. Communication skills, and that means both, having public-friendly versions of your thesis, having a good web presence. Quantitative manipulation skills. Remember, you've got this data streaming now, so you need to be able to process. You have to deal with big data, data analytical skills. You need stats and GIS and graphics to interrogate that data. Business skills. You need to manage people. You have to have risk analysis. You need to balance budgets and have business plans. Science is like running a little small business. Marketing, ability to generate funding to support the ability to generate funding support is a key determinant of success in science, because if you can if you get the money, then you get the support people, your technicians or graduate students that can help you achieve the science that you'd like to achieve. So after graduate school, Multidisciplinary approaches are increasingly sought after. Teamwork is a key element in successful programs. One thing about graduate school is it tends to be fairly individual. It's your thesis, your focus. And yet, when you get into the job world, you're actually working mostly in a team, typically in the team. And so you have to work collectively together. Learning's a lifelong process. Just because you're done with school doesn't mean you're not going to keep learning. So, and you've probably learned already. University courses are one of the least efficient ways of learning. So you want to develop learning skills outside of classroom. Learn by doing. Rigorous self-analysis. What did I do well? Not so well? How do I improve? So keep pushing yourself. And write it down, whatever it is. Publish often, publish in a variety of media, persist until it's published. And so there's journals for everything. And there are people in agencies and people in private consultancies that continue to publish. And then they move back into academia. It's a fairly seamless thing. So publishing is like your breadcrumb trail of your career. So make sure you publish. Environmental science and management will not get you rich monetarily, but it will enrich your life. And I think if you've chosen, by going through the MEES program, a training for environmental science and management that will set you up well for, I think, the graduates that have come out of our program have been very successful in a whole diversity of fields, creating businesses, working for agencies, working in academia, working for NGOs. There's a plethora of opportunities in which you could apply this science and management. And the final slide is advice from Charlie. He wrote, the studies were, however, of no importance compared with the habit of energetic industry and of concentrated attention to whatever I was engaged in. I feel sure that it was this training which has enabled me to do whatever I have done in science. So he's really saying it's his energetic industry and its concentration. Therefore, my success of a man of science, whatever this may have amounted to, has been determined as far as I can judge by complex and diversified mental qualities and conditions. Of these, the most important have been the love of science, unbounded patience in long reflecting over any subject, industry in observing and collecting facts, and a fair share of invention as well as of common sense. So I think he should have the last word of how to be successful in science, since he did a pretty good job of it. Looking forward to our discussion about this launching your careers in this world.